welcome to the webinar, which is arranged by Midagon and NayaDaya Analytics. I'm Maria Kausto-Turner from NayaDaya Analytics. In today's webinar, we are focusing on M&A integrations, and especially how to execute a successful integration by building inclusive and productive relationships with the acquisition targets. Also, we're exploring the challenges with traditional culture concepts and studies. Our speakers today are Taru Vekrut, who is M&A Community Lead at Midagon, and our Timo Järvinen, co-founder from NayaDaya Analytics. Please, could you first introduce yourselves before we start the presentation?
Taru, please.
Sure. Hello. And thank you so much, NayaDaya, for hosting this webinar and for inviting us from Midagon as well. So the name is Taru Vekrut, and I lead the M&A community, or kind of a community of practice at Midagon. And we specialize in executing very challenging transformation projects and programs. And this includes the M&A integration and separation. And we advise our clients at all stages of M&A transactions, from strategy to the benefit realization, but especially the implementation.
Okay, thanks. And myself, Timo Järvinen, and I founded the company NayaDaya Analytics about 8 years ago already, so many years of, I would say, demanding development behind us here to solve the people-related business critical problems, and now especially in M&A integrations and transformations in general. So with the help of science, AI, innovations, analytics, and we have the solution we call people risk analytics. So great to be here today with Taru and diving into this relevant and I would say critical topic.
Thank you very much, Timo and Taru. Briefly about the agenda before we proceed. The webinar will last about 45 minutes. And after that, we will go through questions. If you have questions, please submit them via the chat channel during the webinar. So then we will go into those after we are finished. Okay, let's go, Taru and Timo.
Right. So maybe a few words about Midagon, because those of you who are not working in the Nordics or just not very closely following the consultancy market here, the name Midagon might be new. So we are a consulting house originating from Finland, where I'm myself based. We have 3 offices in Sweden and Finland, about 250 consultants. Even though we were a startup about 50 years ago, we have also worked on some of the most high-profile mergers and acquisitions in Finland, including some of the Nokia cases in the early days. So that's why we think we are talk about this topic. And what's special about us is that we only have very senior and experienced team members who advise our clients from the same side of the table. So we don't bring large execution teams, but we help to ensure that our clients' projects are successful. And so we're talking about hands-on experience. Our typical consultant might have led a dozen or more M&A integrations or separations, and a proven track record and subject matter expertise in some of the most critical functions of these programs, like IT and supply chain and finance. But we focus on business benefits, which is surprisingly easy to lose track of that during a very difficult and long project. We have also very strong project management background. And we like to think that we are very independent and objective, since we are not tied to any integrator or solution provider, not even to NayaDaya. So we are free to act in our clients' true best interest. And when we talk about people risk, I think it's relevant to talk about culture, as culture is fundamentally about identity, the identity of an entity as perceived by people. And culture is based on perceptions. It takes time and effort to actually impact it. And now, well, company culture can be based on national culture. It's definitely impacted by national culture, but the stereotypes can be very misleading. So company culture can be very different from national culture, and company cultures can conflict in very surprising ways. Once was in a case where the national cultures were analyzed with a lot of insight and nice sense of humor actually, but the analyzing the company cultures was not done, and there were quite serious clashes very soon, and they came then as a surprise. And maybe from like Midagon background, then when we acquired a Swedish business, the Swedish consultants were absolutely horrified to join a company that would be kind of based on national stereotypes and managed kind of like really harshly, less collaboratively, almost like in a military fashion. But I think like they were very pleasantly surprised that we actually had an exceptional company culture fit, a lot more kind of collaborative and human than you would expect from normal Finns, right? But so the identity is demonstrated by concrete behaviors by people, especially by management, and then it's interpreted by others. So it can be impacted and changed by behavior. But then this kind of very tight timelines and execution focus in M&A implementation, it often makes it especially difficult to take the time and effort to actually take these kind of fairly sophisticated actions. And so it's often partially correct to blame culture class if an integration fails. However, culture also often gets the blame when the failures are somewhere else entirely.
Okay.
And so this timeline, which is a webinar in itself or several webinars, but let's use it as a kind of a background for discussion. This shows the phases of a typical M&A integration. So we move there from a strategy to screening and due diligence. And what I just really want to emphasize here is that the analysis and action of culture and identity needs to start from due diligence onwards. That if it comes as a surprise during the implementation, then it's really late to do it properly. There are going to be a lot of pitfalls at that point. And then the same thing actually, but almost in reverse, needs to happen in separation when you have a divestment case. The new identity and culture for the separated entity must be consciously created. And this can actually be fun. I've had good experience of this because sometimes in this case, the separated entity actually feels like that their true identity is emerging from under this kind of load of the bigger corporate culture, and they're finally free to be themselves. So then an important decision that impacting actually all activities in M&A integration is the speed and depth of the integration. And there's another decision that needs to be taken early. It's driven by the deal logic, and it requires quite deep understanding of each company. And most of it, we aim at this full and rapid integration, where the end result is that the companies are indistinguishable from each other, operating in the same ways as soon as possible. But often it makes sense to integrate gradually, take over a longer time with the same target of becoming one company, but taking time to do it sensitively. And acquiring something that, for example, has a very similar culture and identity like our Swedish business was, but slightly different offering. This is a good example. We had slightly different service offering in different countries for about 2 years. And now we are gradually building our offering so that we can deliver all the services to our clients from both countries. And sometimes we want a hybrid or partial integration, or just minimal. But if you acquire a small startup that is in such an early stages that becoming part of a bigger company would be a distraction, then that would be a candidate for minimal integration. And a hybrid would be a good option if there are clear differences in operating models, and integrating fully might hurt both companies. But then let's discuss. I think we've missed one slide here, actually.
Actually, that one. Sorry about that.
Yeah, there it is. Okay, thank you. So just wanted to kind of like paint this horror picture that discuss the difficulties the challenges in a bit more detail. I said earlier that the culture gets the blame when something goes wrong in integration. And this might be simply kind of frustration over IT and integration projects that take a lot of time and effort. But sometimes also about different maturity levels. That if you think that a large company, the acquirer, has a long history, very high maturity in its business, then there's also kind of finer granularity and division of responsibilities. And the decisions take longer, several experts must be consulted, and the IT systems might be clumsy, but they give a global visibility to all business. And then compared to this, if you have a smaller company, usually the acquired, one person might know everything related to several functions and has the authority to make decisions. And then there can be several simple but unlinked IT systems, and there's no single source of truth. And from either angles, looking at the other, the actions and perceptions of the other party can seem very strange. And these behaviors can be interpreted then as culture, and that creates a culture class. But then how do we navigate these projects successfully? I would like to leave a couple of practical points. And this is my favorite picture of a bridge works near my house. We like to talk about building bridges in this across the NayaDaya integration and not letting anything fall in between different teams who are working there. So definitely measure the culture gaps. There are companies who provide this service. And creating capabilities, well, this is a webinar and several webinars in itself. But having this kind of concrete and explicit targets, what the integrated or separated companies must be able to do in order to run the business. This is kind of tangible, practical work to be accomplished together. So maybe talk about that at some other opportunity later. But communication, obvious, but in general, there are too many surprises in this kind of integration. So rather over than under communicate and communicate clarity. There's also a lot of confusion in these cases. And a really simple tip also for the buyer is they get absolutely oversized pride of the acquisition. That this is the gem, this is the crown jewel, we got this. This is the best thing ever happened to us. That sort of mentality. And keeping praising the acquired part in any imaginable way never goes wrong. And then the acquired entity leaders should then focus on the opportunities and rewards created by the integration. And actually all leaders should consciously model behaviors that are consistent with the new culture. It's unfortunately quite common to see the exact opposite of this, that people start enforcing this us and them mindset. But I would think that as an executive, if you enter this game, you need to be above that. You need to behave yourself. And if you have a successful approach, if you've done a couple of integrations well, then definitely put it in the playbook and serialize your successful integration approach. The more detail you can have, the better. And culture should be part of that approaches that you take. And then finally, can measure the response that you get from people when you manage culture, that understand how people are reacting to what you're doing and be ready to react. But I think this then, Timo, leads quite nicely to the people risk analysis. I think you have more on this topic.
Yeah, thank you, Taru, for this inspiring presentation, I would say, and extremely interesting point of views, and I'm glad to continue from this. So let's take a look like how we can shift the focus from blaming the culture, as Taru said, to creating more like inclusive relationship with the acquisition target and like revealing data and science based insights and actions to build successful integration. So let's start from this fact, which is proved by many studies, that mergers and acquisitions tend to fail quite often, and especially because the people and culture related reasons. And now let's take a look at the anatomy of those failings it's like practical way of explaining what goes wrong. I mean, I'm not yet talking about root causes or behaviors, but more like the behaviors on both sides, such as like for example, lack of empathy, which is like stepping into the shoes of people and understanding their emotions and behavior, paying attention to the people's different viewpoints like that. Or then lack of the positive emotional engagement, which is crucial for the change and productive behavior. And I mean, this is far more than just being satisfied. So not to mention the resistance or disengagement there. And then the lack of support or guidance, like being there for the acquired people and leading by example, empowering them in change, providing transparent information. So the problem is that through all these people are not like unifying the efforts for the change, for the successful integration. So, and actually the same applies for any transformation. And then about the culture conflict. So as Taru mentioned, culture conflicts are often blamed for the integration failure. So even if the real cause there may sometimes lie somewhere else. So the challenge is that, I mean, even if the culture, such as like values and behaviors, practices, they are many times behind the problems. The concept of culture still, it's very broad, it's quite complex, even vague, I would say. So when you blame like a thing with so many dimensions and try to get the handle of it, especially in the process with tight schedules and overloaded resources, you may run into trouble there. And the traditional solution to solve this kind of challenge is the culture study. I mean, diving into those dimensions of the possible culture conflict. So this sounds great, and it does help you to get like long-term insights. But the challenge there is that those studies, they are slow, they are like more like retrospective, they burden people, they lack the agility to address like ongoing issues in the evolving situations. So I think it's obvious that we need another kind of concept and like new mindset here to identify and mitigate these people challenges. And what kind of mindset would be needed? So we propose that the most effective one would be about building a relationship between the parties with the acquired people there. So like a relationship grounded in empathy. So with a simple, pragmatic human interaction. So you don't need to analyze the multiple dimensions of culture there. Just ask the right questions. I mean, like, how do you feel about the integration? Why do you feel how you feel? So this is about addressing those concrete barriers or drivers for the healthy, engaged, productive relationship. So I would say that, in fact, this is how you would treat like any person you value, actually. So why would it different in integration, and why is it so difficult? Well, with groups of people, for the individual like discussions, they are not enough there. I mean, you need data, you need also science. So data about employee emotions and the reasons behind them, and then scientific understanding of emotions and behavior. I mean, emotions and behavior science, it's actually very logical. I mean, people feel the way they feel for a reason, okay? And for those reasons and emotions, they behave as they behave. It's so simple, actually. Like basically, if you want them to be engaged in the integration, like not resisting the change or losing their performance and so on, you need to change the game. You like start thinking like people think, like understanding the root causes for their behavior. And this sounds maybe simple, and it's amazingly simple in the end of the day. But for this, you need a sophisticated science-based solution. I mean, without those tools, actually the emotional and behavior science, it is very complicated and full of like pitfalls, just like the culture. But luckily, we have done all the hard work during these 8 years. So these sophisticated processes, they are already there. And we are able to provide you an extremely simple tools for your integration, and we call that people risk analytics. So this solution, it's based on emotion and behavior science, MTA integration, intelligence, so science, but also AI there. And so this solution is building a standard process for involving people in the integration, revealing the risks levels, the root causes for behaviors, actions to be taken, and so on. And so it's giving you like both the agile insights for the change process, but then also like strategic insights for the long-term learning. It's a like responsive, dynamic way for building this one. I mean, inclusive, productive, and successful integrations to change the game, to start thinking the way people think. I would say like stepping into their shoes, even become one of them. That's the idea. So Taru, now when we have all this like chain of thoughts here, I would like to ask you, what do you feel about this thinking in general?
Well, I think this is certainly like an ideal model. This is the kind of situation where you want to be, that you want to be able to sidestep the blame and build a good relationship and understand the root causes for the emotions. But sometimes the MTA integrations, they start from more difficult starting points. Sometimes you have even like a hostile takeovers. Sometimes the current management may have made a mess of a company, and that's why it's getting acquired. So sometimes you need to also shake things up a little bit to get to the fundamental targets. After all, is the benefits realization, the getting the business benefits that we originally wanted from this transaction. Sometimes it can be a little more bumpy road than what's shown here, but I think this is definitely an ideal case, and this is where you should be aiming at.
Yeah, thanks. You are right about that. I mean, of course, our goal is to like support the model with the highest likelihood to like of success, and I mean both of the business and people point of view. But I still would say that even in those kind of more difficult cases, this is giving you insights about the concrete problems and how to handle them. So even in those cases, I would say it's better to have this kind of process than not. Okay, let's move on and let's have a quick look at the different methods for involving and understanding employees, like people risk analytics and the traditional methods here. So, okay, the corporate culture study we already discussed, like long-term insights, slow but hard word there, retrospective is the word here. Burdening people and you know, a lot of work and expenses there. Okay, then we have the traditional employee service there. I mean, also slow, with no understanding of ongoing issues there. I mean, they also burden people, and there's a lot of noise. They're asking a lot of questions about things, but maybe not even relevant to people. And one problem here is that they do not understand behavior. I mean, using these one-dimensional scales, they tend to promote satisfaction, which is an emotion making people passive, not promoting the change. So both the insights and the lack of agility do not like meet the needs of for integrations, I think. And then we have these policies and employee NPS, and the challenge there are quite poor insights. Neither these surveys, they don't understand behavior. They are only measuring and emphasizing satisfaction and the comfort zone more, if you like, not promoting the change. And it's quite difficult actually to know what to do with these results. But then the people risk analytics, they're creating rich, actionable insights, predicting behavior through emotions and science, showing true appreciation to people, and through empathy, paying attention to people's emotions and viewpoints, building the inclusive integration, more healthy, productive relationship. And one more thing there, I mean, it provides at the same time like operative and strategic level of insights from aggregated data. So with the same analytics, like two birds with one stone, actually. So this is a solid business case, and I hope this is helping you see the positions of these methods and tools. But Taru, what do you think about these? I mean, you have experiences in many kind of methods from your career.
I think many of these different points, I mean, they have a place in understanding the kind of lay of the land in a program. I think I mentioned that the corporate culture study would be worthwhile information if you're able to get it. But then as kind of like a program manager, I'm sort of looking mostly at kind of simple and pragmatic tools that I can implement in the program where I get value immediately without analyzing them to death. So I see this as a kind of a really good addition to the toolkit, and I agree with the position that you put the people risk analytics here.
Yeah, okay, thanks. And now we should move on, and I will give you some, like, briefly some information about the solution, not going in depth. I mean, we are glad to talk to you in person more, but just giving you an idea. So this is the general process of the people risk analytics there. You know, it's very simple from the client point of view. Input there means data we are collecting from the employees. Data is then processes with the analytics. Then the output includes mostly like three levels you see there. Actually, the report is quite expensive, having much more, but these are the most like business critical outputs. And this standard process can be executed always the same way, 3 times during the integration, and it's scaling even from 10 employees to hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of people, if that's the case. And here's a shortly about how the collecting data. I mean, this is the cloud application we use, easy to share with the people. So main point here, we don't need the traditional service with many burdening questions at all. Only these 3 questions are there about emotions, their intensities, and the reasons behind them in the context of the integration or transformation sometimes. So we use a scientific method here, which is created in the University of Geneva in Switzerland. As I said, we are glad to tell you more about this in person if you are interested. But now moving on and giving you an idea about the outputs. This is the first one, the people risk level there. So this is based on our scientific algorithm, which is predicting employee behavior even in 3 dimensions. And in general, the bigger the number is, the bigger is the risk for the integration to fail. And then there's another indicator for employee experiences, easy to understand. So you can use these both to compare the situation in different phases of the integration or in different business units or countries, for example, if you like. Then we need to know what are the concrete things behind these numbers, and this is why we have this root cause analytics. So this is showing you the things behind emotions and behavior and risks, like their significance, which is always the size of the each bubble, and their impact on behavior, such as, like, for example, retention or employee turnover, like productivity or productivity collapse, passivity or resistance, that kind of behaviors, for example. So these behaviors and risks, they are indicated by the location of and the color also of each bubble. So they are like traffic lights, as you see actually. So one more thing, these bubbles, they are different in this case. These are just examples, so we don't know beforehand what they are. We will see how they evolve during the process. That's the point. And then one more third output there about action points and even recommendations there from the left. So first we can point out and prioritize also the highest risk and protective factors there. And so then there's a summary of actions to be taken, and then more detailed action for each risk, each protective factor there. And now all these actions, they are based on the case-by-case result and the situation, even the phase of the integration. So this is totally like a responsive and dynamic system. And then shortly one more practical example there. I mean, how a company with multiple acquisitions can compare different integrations with each other. So it's easy to see how these risks evolve in different phases of the process in different companies. I mean, like an intuitive overview of the overall situation. But there's even much more. I mean, we are able to aggregate all the data, all the results I was showing you from multiple integrations, from across integrations, with all those output tools, the people risk levels, employee experiences, root cause analytics, even action points. So all of them can be used to build also strategic level insights to improve the process and learning from the data. And then just shortly about the analytics behind this. I mean, the first level there, from below there, that's the emotion and behavior intelligence, the core analytics there. Then the second level there, it's about setting goals for the process. Third level, that's a dynamic framework for identifying the right kind of actions, which is based on emotion and behavior science and M&A process intelligence. And then when we use also generative AI, we get to the fifth level, which is about those actions. So to get these outputs, and much more actually, by asking only the 3 questions I showed you there, you need this deep analytics with science, AI, M&A integration, intelligence. So this is something what we have been building all these years. Lastly here about the product, just the concrete solutions available, you will see them here in people risk analytics for each integration with 3 rounds of analytics, and then across all integrations, aggregated data and results, you know, like a subscription according to your needs. That's the point there. So I think we can go, are going to a conclusion here about what we have seen and discussing here. So I would summarize that the cultural conflicts are often the reason for failing integrations. But however, the culture is complex concept, and the culture studies lack the ability to support like agile actions in these fast-paced integration processes. So what we propose is it's an approach like for addressing people's emotional experiences, their root causes in a simple, I would say like down-to-earth way, practical way, where when this approach is combined with emotion and behavior science and AI in this sophisticated analytics, then we can create these effective and actionable insights. And at the same time, showing respect to people and building the inclusive integration and the healthy, productive relationship we have been talking about with people. So this is how you mitigate the people and culture-related risks. Of course, we are talking about the financially expensive failings and also promoting sustainable growth. So Taru, what would you say about all this, what we have seen? Do you have some more thoughts? Maybe?
I think that, well, I wouldn't be here if I didn't think that this would be a good addition to Integration Management Office Toolkit. But also kind of maybe on portfolio level, if you're a serial acquirer, you might want to use this across everything that you do. And maybe kind of application maybe that like however well you prepare, if you read all my slides carefully, do all these actions that I outlined, something is still going to go wrong in a program. And this is a quick method to find out, okay, what happened? How do we correct? How do we get back on the course where we want to be? So I think in that kind of context, this is a really strong approach.
Yeah, thanks. And I said before there, so we are many times can see like issues which are, they are not always about culture. They can be something else. But people are the ones who tell us what is significant from their point of view, and so that's the like approach here. Okay, so this is all now. So here's my contact information also for Taru. So we are here to help you. More than happy, of course, to discuss with you, and also on our web page, which is the NayaDaya.com. We have the link where you can book book a meeting if you like. But from my point of view, thanks very much, and let's be in touch, I hope.
Yeah, I think that's all from me. It was really interesting to be able to join this and also hear a little bit more about the service. And also from my side, if you're interested in, I think I mentioned several times that there would be another webinar and a lot of things we glanced at will also be here at your service. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you, Taru and Timo, for your time and excellent presentations. Now this concludes our official webinar, and we are closing the recording at this point.